Your journey has been an interesting one up to here. You've questioned so much more than those around you. You've even questioned yourself as to how you could have grown into these thoughts. Am I crazy? When did I begin to think differently? Why do people in general appear so limited in their thought process? Rest assured, you are not alone. The world is slowly waking up to what you already know inside, yet can't quite verbalize. Welcome to the Spiritual Dope Podcast, the show that answers the questions you never even knew to ask, but needed the answers to. Questions about you, this world, the people in it. Most importantly, how do I proceed now moving forward? We don't claim to have all the answers, but we sure do love living in the question. Time for another hit of Spiritual Dope with your host, Brandon Henley. Let's get right into today's episode.
Hey there, Spiritual Dope. I'm on here today with Arcturus Eden. He studied biology in college and then worked at a common fund capital. At the time, a $6 billion fund of funds, exclusively managing not-for-profit money. After 9/11, he worked in the government intelligence and was involved with secret missions around the world. He is creator of World Peace Ceremony, a movement with a mission to unite humanity and coordinate a grand celebration of peace on Earth. He previously joined Marianne Williamson's run for Democratic nomination for President of the United States as Senior Advisor and Director of Peace Building. He created a plan to launch a private peace industry and a United States Department of Peace. He's been to Burning Man 6 times and has sat with ayahuasca 42 times. Arcturus, thanks for being here today, man.
Great. My pleasure, Brandon. Great to be here.
So, I usually I used to keep this on the back end, and it's funny. I saw that you posted, and we're gonna dig into a little bit of AI later. But you'd posted a good way to make people happy was to find out like who their favorite comedian was, and then go to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me a joke by this person and their style, and then share that joke with the person, right? So I love that. It's a great idea. So what I did was I went to your About Me page, right, at worldpeaceceremony.com, and I took ChatGPT and I said, ChatGPT, I'm interviewing Arcturus, and let's find some speed dating questions based off of this information that you can find on his page. So I look at this podcast, it's kind of like a spiritual speed dating, right? Like somebody's going to come in, they're going to check you out, and they'll be like, I'm ready, I want a date, right? So let's see. It actually came up, this is probably the best ones that I've gotten out of here today. I don't even know what this holiday is that you were born on, but here's the first question, right? As someone born on Simchat Torah, a day of joy and celebration of the Jewish faith, how do you feel that this timing has influenced your spiritual journey?
Yeah, thank you for asking. I feel like when I was a young boy, the stories that my parents told me about how I was were that I was joyous and clapping and super happy when guests arrived and made everyone around me happy. This continued into my childhood when I loved to sing, and there was a time when I was growing up I faced aggression that from my older brother. We were fighting, and I feel like my joy was kind of stripped away from me in a way. And so my quest in my life has been to knowing that I used to have so much joy, is to come back, get that joy without even knowing it. I spent so much time in my mind studying science only to come back to my heart to find my joy again. And I love my brother, and we love each other, and yeah.
Awesome. So you feel like this holiday that you were born on was reflective within your life in of itself.
This holiday is called in Hebrew Simchat Torah, or Simchas Torah, is called rejoicing with the Torah, or rejoicing with the story of Judaism. So I was born at the kind of the tail end of that day, and in the streets of Jerusalem, there's euphoric energy of celebration and dancing, and that very much embodied the way that I was when I was a kid.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love that. That basically showed up in your life. Where's another good one? There was another good one. I had no idea. Well, can we say your birth name?
Of course.
Well, I mean, just the first name. So your given name, Daniel, means God is my judge. I didn't even know this, right? Like, so I'm like, what? How has this influenced your spiritual perspective and your relationship with divinity?
Wow, with divinity. So when I was 6 years old, I had a beautiful dream of a tree with like monkeys and colorful birds chirping and animals happy throwing around bananas and oranges and sunlight. It was a beautiful scene. When I woke up, I was excited to tell my mom about this dream. And when she heard it, I remember her being super surprised. She was like, "What?" And I was 6 years old, and I said, "Wait, what is it?" And all in Hebrew in Jerusalem. And she said, "I just taught the dream from the book of Daniel in class today." She was a biblical studies teacher at a high school in Jerusalem. So she was teaching that day. There was the book of Daniel. Daniel was basically informing King Nebuchadnezzar, the ruler of Persia, of what his dream meant. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that no one could understand, and Daniel was the only one who could understand the dream, which was basically about the coming changes of the world and the falling of the empire and the rising of a new empire. And so I guess my mom thought it was synchronous, the moment of synchronicity, that I dreamt of a beautiful future of a utopia, or the same day that she taught the Daniel's dream. And I didn't really even remember this until I was in my late 20s, when I worked in the security and defense industry in a kind of a secret mission at the time between the United Arab Emirates, so Arabs and Israelis, and the United States. And basically, we were in a peace-building environment, working on security and defense, and all of a sudden I found myself, and I was back in New York at this point, but I was reflecting on the meaning of my name Daniel and what it means, and was noticing that here I am in my late 20s working on peace between Arabs and Israelis with like leaders of countries and stuff, and all of a sudden I'm remembering this dream I had when I was 6 years old, dreaming of a positive future, and it felt like it was like divine. Like this is before I was very scientific and rational, and all of a sudden in my late 20s I sort of had this like download that my name is so connected to history from thousands of years ago and kind of what I'm even working on now. And yeah, the story continues from there. That's
for sure. So you'd probably say, that even just having the name Daniel is kind of, it's attuned you to God, divinity, and your spirituality in a sense.
Yeah, in Hebrew, Daniel, Daniel, El means God. So any name like Michael, Daniel, Gabriel. Gabriel means strength of God. Michael, who is God. Daniel, judged by God. And there's so many more names, but Elohim, Elohim is the main name of God, and there are different names for God in the Old Testament. And so, yeah, God is in my name, my given name, which is common.
Right. But it's neat, right? I think that's always interesting to see just how your name, even without you putting an absolute effort into it, creates your space, right? We've got a son. Our son's name is Liam, which is kind of short for William, which means like ardent defender, and without like being prompted, without being told. I mean, this is what he does. So it's always interesting to see that it's almost like their names choose them before. You know what I'm saying? So it's like your name kind of chose you, and it's being represented in your life. Well,
Yeah.
we connected through through some emails, and you and I got to chatting a little bit before coming on here. You've got a book coming out, and the other couple things we'll talk about that too. Love to talk about like Burning Man. Never been. I think that's where some of your world peace ceremony stems from, right? That's your vision, kind of coming from there, and sitting with ayahuasca 42 times, man. So we pick. What's your choice? Where do you want to start?
Oh man. My nephew's name is also Liam, and I'm in Williams Island right now, so I'm with you.
There you go. Synchronicities.
Sometimes it occurs to me that Burning Man and ayahuasca have been definitely two profound experiences that I've delved myself into. And to me, Burning Man is a coming together of humanity in a seemingly futuristic culture that seems to be something cosmic. It seems to be programmed from some higher intelligence. That's my take on it. I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels that way, but not everyone sees it that way. And ayahuasca is this plant deep in the jungle of Peru that is connected to the roots of thousands of species in the jungle and has a deep intelligence in nature, that when you consume it, you're tapping into the intelligence of nature in a profound way. And I think we're only beginning to scratch the surface. So whatever I can say about ayahuasca is knowing that there are people who've done it thousands and thousands of times, and maybe even more importantly, people who've not only done it thousands of times in this life, but for 1,000 years or more, they come from a lineage. All of their ancestors have done it. So I feel like doing it 42 times is really, I'm only beginning to understand what is even available.
Just getting started.
Well, I don't know how many more times I'll do it, but when the spirit calls you, ayahuasca called me when I was traveling in Asia in 2017. I had known about ayahuasca in 2011. So, interestingly enough, I knew about Burning Man years before, but only in 2012 I experienced Burning Man. I knew about ayahuasca in 2011, but only in 2018 I did it. So it's like when the spirit of these experiences calls you in, you know it, and you go for it, kind of thing. With any experience.
When you say, and I'm all in, right, on kind of being called for it, but for somebody that, how would you describe being called to something, right, like ayahuasca?
Well, yeah, being called. I know from my experience was that I was riding in the car with my friend in LA who's like a yoga aficionado, and she was like, hey, there's this tea from Peru like Native American tribes like drink it, and it's a psychedelic experience, and it releases trapped emotions in your body, and it's an amazing experience. And my first response was, let's do it this weekend. And she's like, no, you don't understand. You gotta do a dieta, and you prepare for it, and you gotta, don't eat salt, and maybe go to the jungle. And it's like, okay. So, but when I was surprised that when I was traveling in Asia in a totally different context, when I completely disconnected myself from the structures that I was so used to living in, of business and entrepreneurship and living in New York and San Francisco and LA. When I traveled to India, and after a month, I decided to take a one-way flight to Thailand and even send back a suitcase. And I decided to sign up for a screenwriting class, which was something creative and different than what I had been doing. And I was writing 1 page a day in a screenplay for a movie about world peace, but how humanity designs AI that eventually helps humans create basically a utopia. But the more I got into it, even though I was enjoying this process and traveling to Laos and Vietnam and 8 countries in 5 months, I was also skeptical about what I was doing. I was like, what? How come I'm writing this movie like it's a multi-$100 million film? Like, what is it? Why? It's like as if I need respect from my family or something. I was skeptical of this desire to do something that seemed to me to be impressive. And I remember why do I want to do something impressive? And because I want to be respected. And why do I want to be respected? Well, because I have trapped emotions in my body. And then it reminded me of ayahuasca, that it's all emotional, and then no matter where I went, every day it was in my consciousness, ayahuasca. So it just was like, okay, this is in my consciousness everywhere I go. I started looking in Asia to do ayahuasca, but maybe I could have found a place, but it wasn't really in Far East Asian experience. It's really more in Peru and the Amazon.
Gotcha.
It took me another 6 months, and I finally made it. Yeah,
I got you. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not something. I guess if you're down there in LA, it's not like you can go get some Mexican food. You gotta go. You got to make a trip. You got to make an effort. And I love that because I know that there are actually places that I think out in that on the West Coast now that'll do it. But there's a sounds like she's like, hey, look, there's actually a ceremony. You don't just it's not like dropping acid, for example, right? Like, it's not like, hey, let's just go get a couple tabs and we're going to hang out this weekend. It's going to be great, right? She's like, look, this is a ceremony. Don't eat salt. There's a whole there's a ritual involved, which is kind of foreign to our I would say Western civilization, Western culture of just if I can't get it in a vending machine, then I'm not going to waste the time. And it sounds like the driving factor for you too was this whole trapped emotions bit. And if I recall correctly, in reading about you, you had some emotional back and forth with your brother as you were growing up. Is this the trapped emotion? Were you trying to overcome that and return to Eden, return to yourself, right? Your joyous self. Is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's, and regarding LSD, LSD comes from the ergot mushroom, which then sometimes people think LSD is so synthetic, but it comes from the natural world, from the ergot mushroom. And I grew up thinking that drugs are bad. All substances that are considered drugs, don't take them. And in my early 30s, living in San Francisco, I was in an I was volunteering with an AI research nonprofit with people who I thought were very smart. Today they're called the Machine Intelligence Research Institute. And I was like going to help them raise money and kind of do communications. And then the president at the time of the institution said something about LSD. And I said, look, you shouldn't be saying LSD when we're trying to raise money. This is back in like 2011. And he's like, why? He's like, why do you believe that? And I was like, I can't even believe he's asking this. And then he said something, well, so you believe what the government, what the beliefs that they kind of gave you? And it kind of started getting me thinking. And that group went to Burning Man, and I didn't go that year. And I saw how much of an amazing time they had coming back, and I regretted not going. But then I did the first time I did LSD was at a party in San Francisco in 2012, New Year's 2012. I'm like 31, did one hit of acid, LSD, and I was on a dance floor. People were wearing costumes and all sorts of stuff. In my experience, the first time ever on LSD was that I felt like I wasn't even there. I felt that only my eyes were in the middle of the dance floor. I wasn't there. And whoever I looked at, I became that person.
Wow.
So this ultimate experience of like losing myself. And I can say more about that. I'm a projector in human design, which is related to that. And also reminded me of my relationship with my father. In some way, I feel like in my family, I was like a peacemaker by kind of just doing what I needed to do to serve the emotional harmony of my family. Granted, I wasn't always an angel or whatever, right? But over time, I think the dynamic when we were trying different things, people are trying different personalities out. Everybody wants to be expressed, and everyone wants to receive love and appreciation from the parents. And we're three brothers. I think that over time, the harmony was found when I naturally kind of became a peacemaker, sort of letting people kind of be who they want to be, and being the one who compromises more, and being in one with other people's energies, kind of feeling as if myself was the people around me, subconsciously identifying as the family unit, as opposed to it's just me here, me against the world kind of thing. So later in life, when I found out I'm a projector in human design, it all kind of made sense. And this is a long, much to say about. I don't know if you're familiar with human design.
Negative. Let's find out more.
Yeah. So human design the story goes that there's a Canadian person in 1987 or so traveling in Spain, in Ibiza, and he heard a voice speak to him, and it told him, start working. And for 8 days straight, this voice gave him a whole system, which is an energetic blueprint for all humans, depending on where you were born and the time of your birth. It gives you an energetic map of your body.
Okay.
And the system is broadly based on astrology, numerology, the I Ching from China. So the most popular book in China, the Book of Changes, the precedent to Taoism and Confucianism, the I Ching, the India chakra system, and Kabbalah. So all these systems into like one system somehow. And you can Google human design and it'll ask you a couple of questions and then you'll see what your energetic chart is. And there are 5 main archetypes: generators, manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and am I missing one? And manifestors. So there's a lot there, but you know.
Well, tell us about you, right? Projector. What's a projector?
I am an advisor and a guide. I'm a natural guide. So when I learned about this system, I thought I was like, I'd been an entrepreneur and I thought I was here meant to, to create new things and to inspire and to lead and to like to have the initiator and idea person. And I discovered through learning about human design that if I'm not being myself, then I'll feel bitter. And what myself, according to the system, you can play with it for yourself and see what it means for you. But according to the system, in order for me to be myself, I need to patiently wait for an invitation where I feel recognized, and then I can give my guidance and advice. As opposed to if I see something about I see something about a situation or a friend, and I say, hey, I think you're doing this, I think you could do it better this way, or I see a new path for you, or I have this vision and idea for you, that's going to be met with likely not great energies because people are not ready to receive. They're not yet ready to receive information like that from anyone. But
No, sure, for sure.
So patiently waiting to receive an invitation. Each archetype has a different kind of strategy. But really it's very detailed and there's like energetic channels in the body and chakras and things like that.
I'll check it out. I love it. Thanks for sharing. So Burning Man, I feel like just in the short bits that I've read and seen about you, profound impact on your life, right? Life-changing. How has it affected your life, and what do you think it's doing for the country and the world?
Yeah, well, it's affected my life in that I really see it as I'm very happy that Burning Man exists. I am optimistic that, and still surprised how amazing Burning Man is. It is a sandbox for a futuristic culture that we're slowly disseminating for humanity. To me, it's the ultimate kind of energetic kind of upgrade. And maybe not everyone sees it this way, but to me, Burning Man has been a growth journey, personal growth journey. The first year when I went, I thought it was like a big camping trip where it's a hedonistic camping trip. What I was met with was sort of really these like robust energies of infrastructure and construction and human ingenuity and the effort that humans collectively put together to creating this was beyond anything that resembled a hedonistic camping trip. It was a sort of a massive undertaking that seemed to be that with symmetry, with a map and symmetry and many different theme camps and tens of thousands of people, that it seems to be divinely orchestrated. In fact, it's sort of, no matter what one wants to say about it, it's divinely orchestrated in the following way. It's not like some humans came about and said, we're going to plan how to bring together 70,000 people over time. So let's get together 20 people and slowly grow it. That's not the ethos. It was more of like, let's burn an effigy on the beach. Let's get together. And I think that some ideas, some art, the way art is created in the world and human imagination, if we ask, where does it even come from? It probably comes from some spiritual realm. And so I believe that Burning Man is coming from some spiritual realm, from a higher intelligence, maybe.
Sure. I'd always think of, kind of creativity in of itself is an expression of God through us. Divinity, whatever you want to call it, right? Source energy expressing itself through us. And we're here to allow that to manifest.
Yeah. I think there's also a lot of experiments going on at Burning Man. So, for example, if we think that ayahuasca is a way to tap into a deep intelligence in the earth, and it's a practice that's been happening for at least hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years. In ayahuasca ceremonies, there's magic that happens when a trained facilitator for their whole life is guiding a group of, let's say, 10 or 15 participants in a song circle. And so we have, it seems like we have some data, if you will, about what happens when we have profound spiritual psychedelic experiences in small groups. But what happens when you do that with larger groups? And I've had experiences where it seems like obvious that somebody is sending me, there's an image that I'm seeing that somebody else is seeing. All sorts of profound, seeing spiritual entities that are related to groups of people. I think we're just scratching the surface to begin to understand what's really the intelligence around us. And Burning Man is one way to illuminate ourselves to that, to see that.
I think it's super cool, right? Like when you say larger groups, I'm guessing you're talking about like in the tens of thousands that kind of happen here at Burning Man, right? Versus, when I think of Burning Man, since I've never been and I'm not, super close to the scale, and I hear about the dancing, I hear about the all the stuff. Reminds me of like kind of raves as I grew up, right? Like kind of attending that, but like on a longer term scale. And for the uninitiated that didn't go to raves and they think that it's just dancing and drugs, like there was a community there of bonding, of unity, of dancing with the music, of this collectiveness, right, that you kind of talk about. So that's kind of how in my mind it plays out. But when you talk about a sandbox for a futuristic culture, and again, brief times that we've talked here, you also talk about yourself as kind of on the cusp of new ageism, if you had to call yourself something like this kind of updated version. Would you say like maybe this is the opening of the age of the Aquarius, right? This is the new dawn rushing in. Like, what would you say there?
It seems that we're living in very unique times. The trajectory of the trajectory of where we are on right now seems to be unique in how any intelligent civilization goes through a period of advanced, rapid technological advancements, and so I think we're living in times where there's so much technological innovation, and we're also almost like still getting used to the idea of that we're all in one planet, and we're still unleashing ancestral trauma. So imagine we're still sort of bringing all humans from all different cultures together. We still have some ways to go, and so I say that from a perspective of like, in order to really have like the best of the best rise to the top, meaning the best parts of every culture around the world to come together and to coalesce and to create something new. It does feel like we're in a renaissance of sorts. Now, the age of the Aquarius, my cousin once said that he's in Aquarius. My brother's in Aquarius. I haven't studied that. I don't really know what it means so much. But I hear that we're in the beginning of the age of Aquarius. So,
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Just a 2,000 year, I think, like era, right, in between, the signs that we shift in, and so here we are, where I believe entering into it, and we don't know the specifics, but we're super close to entering into this whole new phase. And to your point, I think that it's we are in an interesting time. Like, do we get to be witness to the beginning? Are we the beginning? I'm going to dig here on the name, going from Daniel to Arcturus, are you a star seed, right? Like, I know you've got the little bit of a alien, vibe, talk to us.
Do I have an alien vibe?
Well, you're Arcturus is like, what? Like, it's one of the stars, like one of the brightest stars out of a cluster. Is that right? And you chose that name, and you're into the aliens, right? You were talking about a little bit there in the beginning.
Yeah. So I was 6 months ago or so. I was reading a book called Becoming, with a Q, about a couple and their spiritual journey, and the woman updated her name, and she talks about that in her book. And as she's sharing that part in her book, and I was in a state of I was sick. I had the flu, but I felt for a few days, I was alone in a Brooklyn apartment, November, December 2022, and I felt like something different was going on inside of my body. And I felt like every thought that I had was slowed down and felt magnified. And I felt like my experience was that an intelligent civilization was communicating with me. Then I thought, well, I feel very weak, but I felt like new proteins are developing in my body. The experience felt healthy, actually. Then I went and got tested. I was negative for COVID, negative for everything, but positive for the flu. And then when I was reading this book, and the woman talks about how her name was updated, but her friend gave her a suggestion for a new name. This entity that I felt like was communicating with me said, "Your new name is Arcturus." but then the pronunciation was actually Arcturus. Your new name is Arcturus, and I felt an acceptance right away. This acceptance, and like, okay, that's okay. So that's going on right now. And later I started researching it and discovering what it meant. And then, 10 years ago, I was considering updating my name to Eden probably because of the dream that I had when I was 6, that for me was seeing a future Garden of Eden. Also, I had 2 friends who, one was kind of English or Irish, and one was Indian. They got married, but they made their last name Eden. It was neither one of their last names, but at that time I was kind of, this insight came to me that my destiny, that is kind of what I want my destiny to be. And I was in a place of thinking about choice. When do we choose? How come do we accept the names that are given to us? And if so, then, but do we also exert some choice in this life over our names? But it kind of fell through, and I kept my name, Daniel Roth, for all these years. Right. I think I just had to experience all the things I experienced, going to Burning Man and ayahuasca, and being in an open enough state, and really being curious about what's next for me in life, and trying to find my next mission or something. And it really did occur to me when I received this name, Arcturus, that I feel like I completed my mission with Daniel. That's how it felt.
Yeah.
And that I'm ready. There's a lot of things that I wanted to do that I couldn't quite put into action in my life. And Arcturus, ever since, when I received this name and I took it on only 6 months ago, in that short time span, I wrote my book, got it done.
Yeah. That's amazing, right?
I didn't expect that to happen either, but it all just kind of happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you took on the new name, and you're embodying it, right? You're doing things as only Arcturus could.
So I learned that there's an alien civilization called the Arcturians, and I feel connected to them, and they are peace-loving civilization that also builds technology, and so I feel connected to them. And I've been seeing a lot of the media about UFOs and aliens, and Akashic channel readers who are sort of receiving insight from faraway galaxies or in this galaxy. And I sort of put it all together I just feel like we're all just here in a program designed by some intelligence that's way grander than what the human intelligence currently is. And we're here, we have choice, and we have a mission, and I feel like my mission is harmony and world peace, and I'm serving, in a crude way, just like some cows and livestock are serving humans in some way, or maybe some trees are serving humans. We're serving higher intelligences, who are hopefully friendly. This reminds me of shadow energies. And actually, yesterday I was speaking with a book publisher, and they have a famous author who sold the New York Times best-selling author, his new book now is about how the coming age is an age of darkness. This guy is he's famous. He's very, what is it? Glenn Beck, and I'm here.
Sure.
We're I don't know if I'm pitching them or they're pitching me, or we're talking about collaborating. I'm just looking for a publisher, and I wrote a book about world peace, and like, okay, so maybe the light. Let's get the light and the dark to talk, because there's probably a lot I can learn a lot from him, and vice versa. Like, we need the light and the dark to come together and make some kind of when I have friends who kind of write dystopian fiction, dystopian nonfiction, or dystopian fiction, like, where do you get this? Where does this stuff come from? Well, it's actually, there's plenty of dystopian stuff happening, in the last 100, 200 years in humanity. So, but for some reason, I was always like surprised. I think it goes back to maybe being born in Simchas Torah. I just always was like happy-go-lucky, idealistic in nature, and looking at the positive. And maybe later in life, being met with my shadow side and my darker sides. But like, when people had super dark stories about the future, I was just sort of like, but where do we kind of draw the line as far as, if we're telling a story, shouldn't we be telling a story about what we want to have happen? Like, let's tell stories about the futures that we want to see. But there's a flip side to it, and maybe darker stories are meant to be warning signs to show us what to not do. And,
We'll it's always interesting. We'll know at some point, right? I'm always talking to people, and I say, well, I don't know if I'm doing it right or wrong, but I guess we'll figure it out at the end, right? Just kind of how it's all working out. To your point, like, should I be focused more on like these dark stories? Are they ominous, or should I be focused on, telling the story that I want to see come true, right? So, what have you got a working title for the book?
Yeah. Goddess, awakening humanity's cosmic destiny towards world peace.
And this stems from your most profound moment, if one of them, right? It's just like it sounds almost like a combination of your profound moments.
Definitely a combination. The goddess in the beginning. Yeah, I shared with you earlier that the most profound experience I ever had in my life was experiencing a goddess being that was like the most pristine, beautiful, all-loving goddess being. This is while I was at Burning Man. And I was alone, laying down in a meditative position, eyes closed. And it started with me seeing sort of a chrome ball, something that looks like the Google logo, rolling forward, but everything looked exact, and it had faces, and it was kind of a darker color. And then it stopped, and the faces opened up with exact precision, and it felt like my consciousness was in there, and it was slowly led to the feet of a goddess being, and slowly my consciousness was rising up the goddess, and everything about this felt super divine, and I'd never had anything like this before. Nothing came even close to having this experience. So it was very surprising.
Right.
And then my consciousness got to the top of the goddess's head, and she made a sound, a high-pitched frequency, a sound, and encouraged me to kind of move into the goddess's head. And then when I came through the other end, I saw like all of humanity gathered together. And the high-pitched frequency message from her was, it felt to me like by having a high-pitched frequency in humanity, by disseminating a high tone, a high pitch, high frequency, and treating each other with love energies and lightness, and literally emanating sounds like that high pitch into the earth can help to unite humanity, to vibrate ourselves so we can coordinate and collaborate. And so that was like the cherry on top, or it was like a profound spiritual moment that was, I don't know, like just
As if Burning Man wasn't great enough, then there's a goddess event, right? So, I believe part of that will be in your book. You're going to talk about some machine intelligence in the book, and how that comes about and the work that you've done there. And then, I imagine that you're going to be talking about your World Peace Ceremony as it relates to all of your work being done. Now, one piece that you mentioned in the beginning is like, kind of coalescing to meet all of the UN goals. I don't know what those are. I'm not going to lie, man. Like what, so I'm sure it's going to be a great book, but you've got like this sounds like the UN goals. It's kind of like, what somebody would be wanting to know how we get there. So you're kind of giving a roadmap there. What are the UN goals?
Yeah. So it's basic human goals like clean air, clean water, healthy nourishment, energy, access to energy and transportation, no poverty, enough abundance, and the list goes on. There's 17. What I think is
Sure.
What I think is profound about this, because people usually say all sorts of things about the United Nations, but what I do think is profound is that it's still like the whole world, representatives from the whole world coming together and agreeing on that these are the goals. So I think it's an achievement to say that, wow, representatives from all countries essentially came together to agree that these are the 17 goals that we're going for. And yeah, we can talk. There are people who like to downplay the UN for various reasons, but sure. I think it's profound that it's just a matter of humanity coming together and saying these are the goals, and
right.
So that because it's not for me, or if anyone. Usually, when somebody says these are the goals that we should strive for, then
these are the 10 Commandments.
But it's like you come up with it. But how about we all come together to agree, and that there's a power in that.
For sure. I love that. What's the timeline on the book?
It's right now being edited by probably it might even take a year to.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, that's awesome that you were able to finally just let it out and come through you. And again, I love the idea that it was once you changed your name to Arcturus that it was able to flow freely, right? Once you kind of spoke and felt your truth, I would say, right? You were an open conduit, and it came through.
Yeah.
Where
Happened? The other thing, yeah.
Go ahead.
There's. Let's see. The book started writing itself the day after Christmas, and for some reason, the way that started also was my soulmate, Gabriella, the woman I met recently. That when we met, we were very early on the second meeting. I think we both had the experience that you're my soulmate, and we couldn't believe it. We both have shared this experience. And then she was telling me about a book that she was reading by a certain author. And I was curious, and I started reading the book that she was reading, and I started researching the author because I wanted to see what she was so interested in reading. The topic was about empathy. And as I started reading this, something took me over, and 2 pages magically wrote themselves in my book, and so that's just how it happened.
Yeah, so this came through for you. Arcturus, there's so much more to cover. We're not going to get to it today, but there's so much more about you that I'd love for people to find out. Where can we send them to find out more about you and get in contact with you?
Sure. So you're welcome to email me at arcturuseden@gmail.com or go to worldpeaceceremony.com. And awesome. My social handles are there, Instagram, Facebook, and worldpeaceceremony.com.
Arcturus, thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks, Brandon. Thank you so much for your warm energies, and I look forward to seeing you, connecting again. Let me know when you want to have me on again.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, we'll cut it there. So thank you. Appreciate it. Definitely, tons more to chat about. Where are you a global citizen and you kind of just get around?
I'm in Miami right now, and
okay.
I was living in Maui for 6 months recently, and I this morning kind of received a desire to go back to Hawaii, and my girlfriend is in LA and Venice, and so we're trying to figure out where we're going to be. And
I got you. I got you. I saw that you're connected to Paresh Shah on Facebook. Do you know him? He's out in the Venice Beach area, Manhattan Beach. And that was on Facebook. This is the only mutual friend that Paresh Shah. He's the only mutual friend that you and I have. I didn't know if you knew him personally or not.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. He went to Harvard Business School. Interesting. I actually went to it was like a family office investment mini get together conference, and we met there, and he was sharing his whole life story with me. We connected for a deep few hours, and he was talking most of the time.
He's a trip. Okay, no, I was just curious. I've had him on. I've had him on a couple times actually, and I connected with him. When I was out in LA, and just spent a day with him hanging out.
There's something there. He's something. Something.
Fair enough. Arcturus, I'll let you know when this goes out. It'll probably be about a month or so. And I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Brandon. Okay, can't wait to see it. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
Really really hope you enjoyed this episode of the Spiritual Dope Podcast. Stay connected with us directly through spiritualdope.co. You can also join the discussion on Facebook, Spiritual Dope, and Instagram at spiritual_dope. If you would like to speak with us, send us an email through brandon@spiritualdope.co. And as always, thank you for cultivating your mindset and creating a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking part of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay fully up to date. Until next time, be kind to yourself and trust your intuition.